We'd like to begin this podcast by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Here we are again, we're back. It's episode 20 of Talking Couch Potatoes, back with Mel in the studio. Hi Mel, how are you?
Hi Matt, I'm really good, how are you?
I'm good. Had a little break. I went on a little holiday. I hear you did a crash course in rhinoplasty and you were helping repair greyhound noses, which it's a big thing to do, isn't it, on your break?
Because, you know, the bigger the snoot, the more the boops.
That's right. That's a saying, well-known saying. So well done, Mel, for just tirelessly helping the greyhounds yet again. Today we're going to talk about something that's super important because you put a lot of work into this, Mel. It's the estimate committee hearings. Can you just tell me what was the estimate committee hearing and how was it instigated?
We hope that it came out from some correspondence that we had written to the committee, just trying to make them aware of some of the anomalies that we found within the funding and the expenditure around greyhound racing in our state. Twice now, unfortunately, we've been dismissed, if you like, by one of the other committees with our petitions. So we thought, well, we'll try another committee and see if people will look at it from a financial perspective more so than perhaps an animal welfare view.
So you got locked back from the front door, so you went around the side.
Exactly.
And it sounds like there was a bit of movement, sort of revelations.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the more that you can speak to it, the more people will be educated on it. Because I really feel that there's people within government that don't understand the way that it all plays out.
That was the sense I got from watching it, actually, that Free the Hounds seem to have more information about what's going on underneath the covers here than some members of parliament. So you've shone a bit of a light on that.
As we've always maintained, let's see if it is actually worth the money that they say it is. And if so, then let's work together to care for the hounds.
Yeah. Good. If it's making a good money, then they can do good welfare.
Exactly.
Yep. So we're going to do a deep dive into that later on in the show. But for now, I'd like to talk about the 2024 petition.
Yes.
How's it going?
Slower than we'd like. I mean, it was great when it kicked off. There was, ticking over, and then there's always a lull in the middle.
Yeah.
People get busy, and it's hard to maintain something like that. And especially because we didn't think that we'd ever get a hearing off the ground as well. So we've got 7 weeks to go, and we want a lot more signatures. So, yeah, we just need to push.
What can people do at this point to get out of that lull? How can we pick the momentum back up again?
It's about just reaching out to people. If you've got friends, ask them. Ask 10 of your mates to sign it.
Yep.
And ask them to ask one person. It won't take long.
So go on to freethehounds.com.au and just sign it. We have a few things coming up at the moment. One of them is the Freo Market Truffle Festival, which is on the 6th and 7th of July. So if you like truffles and you like saving beautiful creatures, it's a double whammy.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. There will be people there wandering around with some houndies and...
you get to see the hounds.
Yeah, and you can sign our petition.
So that's Freo Market. Freo Market.
Yeah, the Henderson Mall.
That is on 6th and 7th of July. We're going to be having a presence at the Revelations Film Festival.
That's right. They've been very, very supportive of us because they have a houndie in their midst as well called Margie. So they're going to have one of our images on the screens prior to the viewings, which will hopefully have some people sign our petition and also a flyer and information packs and things that go around. And we will have houndies as some of them films.
Family animation explosion.
That's right. This one is specifically an animated films. So that will be at the State Library. And we will have doggies outside and having some discussions with people, getting signatures on Sunday the 7th and Sunday the 14th of July. So this Sunday and then next Sunday.
Sweet.
Kids 10 plus can sign the petition as well. So kids that are 10 years and over are most welcome to put their name to the petition.
That's very important.
Exactly.
Let them know and let their friends know. We need as many as we possibly can because these things make a difference. Petitions make a difference to Parliament. They listen when there's thousands and thousands of people raising their voice. It can make real change.
Exactly, especially when we've got an election next year.
So
if you want to see change, now is the time to do it.
The timing is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Mel, the big thing for this episode is the Estimates Committee hearing that happened on May the 8th and was chaired by the Honourable Peter Collier, MLC. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
Sure. So Free the Hounds were sort of ignored, for want of a better word, by the previous standing committee where we'd sent our petition to in 2022 and 2020. So we decided, well, let's try another avenue, which was to write to the Estimates Committee from the financial perspective, because the thing that I guess prompted us most was that the Greyhounds WA or WA Greyhound Racing Association, their financial report for the year ending 21-22 was about 10 months late for tabling, and it's like that's really unusual for a government agency to take that long to submit and table in Parliament. You're not talking about something, massive with thousands and thousands of employees. So that was sort of what alerted us to it. And then some of the auditors' notes in it were a little bit worrying. So yeah, that sort of started us down a rabbit hole of, well, let's look at the financials. So anyway, we wrote to the Estimates Committee, and then before we knew it, there was a hearing for RAWA, which is Racing Wagering WA, and for the WA Greyhound Racing Association. WA Greyhound Racing Association sits directly within government, and Racing and Wagering WA sits just outside of it, and it's a public organisation. Mm-hmm. There's a million different names for it, but at the end of the day, if either of them fall over, it's the government that's going to pay for them to keep going or shut them down. They get ultimate say, so they sit under government regulation. Yep,
they're not private in any real shape or form. Right. Would you say that the committee was sort of set up as in a balanced way in terms of pro, anti, or was that not an issue?
Yeah, I think it was a really good balance. All, I think, very neutral people, a good mix of parties, and also obviously from an economic background, all of them are in different areas. So
some idea about what they were talking about, what they were asking about.
Absolutely.
How did you feel it went overall? Like, I want to acknowledge straight off the bat what a great piece of work it was on behalf of Free the Hounds and yourself in getting this happening to begin with, because it's not a small feat.
And it was a shock, to be honest, that we it sort of came out of nowhere that it was going to happen.
Yeah. Because you're really getting the ear of the government, and we've spoken before on the podcast about the welfare aspect. We care about the rehoming aspect, but generally what government cares about is the money aspect. And you got them to do a real good look at that.
Yeah, no, it was. Our hearing happened a month later. That was helpful for us because we could really do some homework into things that they'd said as far as knowing what to respond about. But we'd written a document that we'd sort of been working on for many years, and that has been presented to both of the past ministers, but we tweaked it for this and made it more from a financial perspective.
Well, the other advantage you have is that you're on the right side of history.
Oh, I hope so.
That we're dealing with an anachronistic so-called sport here that will end.
Yeah.
So,
I just think there's never been a better time for them to say, well, look, now is the time to do it. Let's show the rest of the country that we can be both economically smart and, from a welfare perspective.
I think that's what I've learnt over the time of our podcast with you is the utility and value of attacking things from different angles.
Yeah.
And this is what this does. This moves back to the economic reasoning. We would hope a lot of the reason WA public who maybe don't have that sort of social activism in them, they have their hip pocket
Exactly.
in mind.
It goes down to not enough people know that it even occurs. So it always goes back to that argument. It's getting the word out there. How do you get the word out there?
Mel, I just wanted to ask a question around the hearing. One thing that stood out to me, there was a statement made by, I think it was Wagering at the beginning of one of the hearings, that they don't get any government funding, which confused me a little bit because the way I look at it, Racing and Wagering WA are a government organisation that the government funds, who then fund Wagering or Greyhounds WA. But how do those two things square when Wagering says they don't get...
Yeah, it depends what you call it. And this is an argument that the greyhound racing industry come back with all the time. Oh, but it's from gambling money. Okay, so all of this tax that we're getting paid or that we receive from the punters...
Yeah.
We could go and put that towards a hospital or we could go and put that towards something else.
Or some mental health
Exactly.
support for,
To the police force, to homelessness. There's a million different things, education. But instead, they elect to give 30% at least back to the industry because the industry is not profitable enough to be able to run on their own.
Right.
So, yes, you are getting government funding.
Yeah.
I don't care where the money came from. The fact is the government is electing to spend that money on racing.
So what if we define, maybe use the negative form? Does Wagering or Racing Wagering WA get any private funding?
Well, they do, but it's from
the gambling revenue.
From gambling.
Right.
So what good is gambling money? It's not like
it's not a value-added
not.
industry. Okay, so it's a bit of number fiddling.
So when the tax laws changed, racing and wagering used to take all the money.
Yeah.
Then the government brought in a point of consumption tax.
Yep.
So the government gets all of that money from the punters. They keep it, and then RAWA said, well, no, that's not right. That's our money. We should keep that. We used to keep that.
Yep.
So the government said, okay, all right, so we'll give you 30% of it. But again, the government prior to that change was still giving them money. They were still giving them infrastructure money.
Right.
So at no point has racing and wagering been able to ever stand on its own.
Are we able to provide the location of a straight track for racing?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That may be funded.
So you're familiar, you know what we're requesting?
Yeah, the question is clear. I'm not sure if I'm able to state the intended
Oh, yeah.
location, but we've got some land that we believe that we can use, and we've had a design done to put the track on it. So the funding question, infrastructure in racing has typically been funded by government in the past, so that's an ongoing discussion at the moment.
A Racing Wagering WA CEO, Ian Edwards, admits that the cost for a new track would typically be paid by government infrastructure funding. Currently in discussion with the state for this.
Yes.
Is that just another example of WA taxpayer money?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for that track, that's a straight track, so it's going to be much safer for the dogs to race. But, okay, so that's great. They've got a straight track. But how often are the dogs going to run on that straight track? It's not like it's going to be the only track raced upon, because they've just spent 6.6 million on Mandurah and they're spending 3 million on Cannington now. So why would they shut those down? The dogs get trained in ball rings or in circular style on their properties.
Yep.
They are still going to trial on circular tracks.
Yeah.
So it's not going to solve injuries.
Yeah. We know that it's propped up by government financially, and they're suggesting things like double lures and preferential boxes and straight tracks. All these things, I would imagine, for an industry that's successful and popular, you wouldn't need to be thinking in so many different ways to keep it going.
100%. If they were a standalone association and were self-funded, we would have no input in. We could bitch and moan about the injuries that were occurring, but financially, but they can't.
They can't survive on their own.
No. If they want to, then off you go. Remove yourselves from government, change the legislation, go and be a standalone association just like all of the codes.
And see how long you last.
Yeah. Do what you like.
Stand on your own 2 feet.
And don't ask the community to take in your dogs at the end of it.
Yep. One of the things that came up, Mel, was that a total of 26 greyhounds lost their lives on WA tracks since July last year and up until the date of the hearing. They couldn't give an explanation as to why there'd been a drastic increase. I watched that part of it and they seemed to prevaricate quite a bit around their answer. What were your thoughts on that?
Because they don't have an answer for it. Well, I believe they do, because they know that the Greyhound Injury Full Recovery Scheme ended on the 31st of January.
I understand the optics of this is that there's been more dogs killed in the last 3 months on track than there was the whole of the reporting period before, and since they changed that scheme. So what's changed, I guess, is a serious and real question here.
Yes, well, we don't believe anything has changed in that respect. As I say, the veterinarians are the ones who are making these calls, so we haven't identified a single factor that says why 9 has become 23.
Are you concerned around what?
Yes, very concerned.
And what's being
and we're
done to
communicating
address
with the veterinarians to try and get an understanding as to their decision-making in that process. We're making sure that the scheme is understood by the industry, that there's not any confusion there.
So because RAWA through GAP will no longer house or kennel the dogs once they've been injured, there's just not the room for them.
Right, because it was a big jump. The previous figure for the whole year was 9.
9, yep.
And now it was suddenly 26 within a few months, within 3.5 months or so.
Yeah, it had gone up.
It's worth a think about, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I mean, honestly, if they've got no idea, then clearly whatever changes they make, because they spent $6.6 million on Mandurah last year, deaths are still occurring. They did gnaw them up back in 2021, still deaths there.
You would think, with millions and millions spent on safety, that there'd be an increase in safety. And as far as I can see, safety does not increase.
No.
The other thing that came out of the committee that I watched was that Wagering, it's a bit of a rooster watching the hen house thing again. Wagering gets approved on the safety of their tracks on any given race day by Racing and Wagering WA.
Wagering being the association, they take care of the tracks.
Yep.
So they take care of the tracks to the standard that's set by Racing and Wagering, because Racing and Wagering are in charge of running the race.
Right.
So
isn't that a little odd? Why would they? Because Racing and Wagering get money if the race goes ahead. Is that
that's how they get their income.
Right.
So if there's no races, there's no punters.
RAWA, Racing and Wagering, it's so hard to remember what's what here. Racing and Wagering WA has never not approved a track as safe for the last 9 years.
Yep.
So you'd think there'd be the odd occasion where, hang on, this isn't looking quite right. But apparently it's 100%.
Yep. Well,
even though all these dogs are dying and there's always the injuries happening, they've never said this track is not safe for racing.
Yep. And that's the thing too, when Northam opened up after their fix, the very first race meeting that they had, a dog died in the 5th race. But they abandoned the race meeting, as they should, At Cannington a few months ago, 2 dogs died in the same race and they didn't abandon the meeting. They kept running. How do you, as a group of people that apparently love these dogs, know that there's 2 dogs now in the freezer at that track who've just lost their lives? How do you continue
to
race
on
the same night? Exactly.
Are they paying attention to the welfare of the dogs, or are they paying attention to the wagering and betting that comes in from racing these dogs?
That's right. And so how do you have the same body in charge of the whole lot?
And that's one of the recommendations from the petition that we mentioned earlier, I believe, Mel, which is to have an independent body that sits between or sits over.
Right outside of them, sits within the minister's portfolio of racing and wagering, but are totally separate.
Yep.
And they don't necessarily have to do all the oversight that the stewards do and all that, but they do spot checks. They go in unannounced wherever they want to, have the freedom to move about, speak to people, and see what's going on.
Someone that doesn't have a vested interest in the... Yep. So sign the petition, everyone. I think there's 7 recommendations, 7 or 8, and they're really good ones. And if you want to check it out, freethehounds.com.au, you can get direct link to the petition itself. You can also go to the government website. On Wednesday the 12th of July, Mel, you all sat on the panel as Free the Hounds representatives to meet with the committee themselves and respond to the racing wagering hearing, the Wagering hearing. Can you tell us a bit about that? What was that like?
It was terrifying. I've never been so scared in my life. But we said, we can't be wrong because we're not doing it from any perspective apart from caring about the dogs. None of us get paid anything for any of this. It's all our personal time and energy. And if the government choose to hear what we have to say and they choose to do nothing, then that's on them. You can only do so much without you becoming a wreck because, you can only do what you can do.
Yep.
And all we really want from the government is to have an honest-to-God look at it, look at what the actual cost to the community is, and I'm talking from a mental health point and I'm talking from a rescue point, all the people that take on these greyhounds afterwards. Look at it holistically and not just at a a policy document that RAWA hands over or an economic report that they hand over within Parliament.
So if you're listening to the podcast, then you've got some interest in this area. Mel, where can people watch the Estimates Committee hearing? Can we link it? Can we link it on the
we'll
website?
Put something up. You can find it on our website.
Just want to finish once again to congratulate you, Mel, and Free the Hounds, because it takes a shitload of work to get things like Estimates Committee hearings going, to get petitions going. It's just a tireless piece of work. I want to thank our producer, Jem, and also thank our listeners. If you really want to be a part of the movement, get your mates to sign the petition and keep listening to the podcast.
Yep. And also buy our merch, only because it starts conversations. I know it does. A gentleman came up to me the other day when I was having a coffee with my two brothers, and he said, "I love your T-shirt. I agree with you." So
Right.
and it was a conversation starter. But it's just about spreading the word, raising awareness.
Mel, is there anything else you wanted to add for this episode 20 of Talking Couch Potatoes?
Nope.
In that case, keep listening. Thanks for listening this time. Thank you, Mel. It's nice to be back in the room with you.
I know. I've missed you guys too. And thank you, Gemma.
Let's keep talking. Keep listening, guys, so we can together release the hounds.